Alright guys, that's Cawk Neck again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. With the season just about to begin, the power rankings have been going around for what exactly we should expect when the matches get underway in just a couple of days' time. The coaches and rumours from scrimmers behind the scenes have been going around to such an extent that we have some list of a reasonable power ranking before the season starts. The big surprise probably is Los Angeles Thieves, considered to be really good at the moment apparently. Scrappy also beefing with Scump again. Plenty to dive into today. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Firstly, thought this is some interesting drama here because we talked about the other day rumours of a certain player or team using automatic tactical sprint or single tap sprint, and Pred said that it was a player that had been out of the league for a few years and now he's back. Immediately people thought GodRx, and then Pred said, well, it's not GodRx, so we then thought, alright, who else is it? Now, apparently someone was requesting though to Clay and GodRx, hey, just make sure this guy isn't using single tap sprint. So someone DM'd Clay and says, can you ask your mate GodRx to not play single tap, please? And, Clay says, brother, he's not on it. I'll settings check him in Cord right now. We all have double tap, all have double tap on. Literally made them screen share and show me. The guy says, okay. So, and Spoof's like, Adam getting movement checked in 2023. Us old men still got the finesse. So this is the thing about single tap to sprint, that you can't tell if somebody's using it. I know that the players think that they can tell, but I don't think you could really tell. Like, okay, you watch another guy hit a nice little slide cancel or jump out of cover and you think, did he really double tap to tap sprint there? Maybe not. But like, did he single tap? It's just so difficult to say that you'll get, this is the issue with GAs like this. You'll get people thinking the guy's using it. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. And I believe Clay and GodRx, of course, when they say this, but the entire, Clay's entire team could be using single tap and he could just say, no, we're using double tap. And what are they going to do about it? They can't tell. At least with the snaking GA, you can actually see the guy doing it, whereas it's so difficult to enforce anything like this that, there's always going to be drama about this during the regular season, that certain players will think that other players are using it, and then they'll think, well, he's definitely using it, I saw him do this to me, so I'm going to put it on as well, and then all hell breaks loose. But maybe, there's an argument that single tap should just be allowed anyway, because I think the game plays better and more fun like that, and you destroy less controllers, but some of the players disagree. Then again, when the season starts, this is a GA. It's not enforced by the league, so they're not going to stop you. This I also thought was really cool from Parasite and Octane here, doing a show every Monday after the CDL weekends, breaking down the matches. It's always a big talking point that people tend to want more analytical content, but when you actually do it, people don't watch. It's how it tends to go sometimes. But I know that people do miss the flank days where they would actually, and maybe a bit of it's nostalgia because I definitely see the value in the flanks, the both ways it's been. But in the early days, let's say Cold War, they did used to analyse a lot of the games. Nowadays, especially when you've got 5 hosts on there with Octane and Parasite and Aches and Zuma and Ben, it's like there's less match analysis happening. There's more talking points about the games and stuff like this. And I think that's perfectly fine, but there's definitely still a place to discuss strategy and, the way things have been played. And I think this should be a good show as a result. So hopefully it gets supported well, because there's always, talk about, oh yeah, want more analytical content. And then when it happens, people just don't really seem to watch it. So hopefully this might be an exception to the rule on that one. This I thought was also hilarious from Jake Hale. I would like to believe that the answer that I voted for is true, but I'm almost certain that it's not, and I was just doing it because I thought that'd be the most popular answer. But Jake L's question is, if you loaded in one of us alongside Simp, Cellium, and aBeZy, so in Drazah's place on FaZe, what would the highest placement be? So, look, this is kind of when they ask men, alright, what's the biggest animal you could defeat? And some people say, oh, I could take down a grizzly hand-to-hand, or I could take down a silverback gorilla. I'm like, you just can't. I mean, you can try, but you just can't. But a good percentage of men will say that they can, beat a grizzly hand-to-hand combat. So, fair enough. So, maybe it's the same thing here, where people are saying, 30% of people reckon they can win an event with Simp, Cellium, and aBeZy. I do wonder what the answer actually is, though, because, look, I would get absolutely ultra slammed, but at the same time, you got Simp, Cellium, and aBeZy. So, maybe I'm just soaking up the hilltop. I don't know. I feel like we could beat someone, you know what I mean? I feel like it wouldn't be top 12 every event, you know what I mean? There would be, I think top 4 is probably a stretch, at least for me, because I'm not very good at COD nowadays. Black Ops 3, okay, I'm not going to mention Black Ops 3 again, but maybe there was a chance on that game. Whereas on this game, but you've got 5 events, you know what I mean? Okay, maybe 4 events if you don't make champs, because we'd be getting slammed every week. But let's say 4 events to get top 8. I think that's plausible, you know what I mean? I feel like we'd beat somebody at one event at some point. because at some point, Simp, Cellium, and aBeZy are just going to all have godlike series and carry me to the dub, and I'm just going to sit in the hill the whole time. So I don't know. I think top 8 is actually a realistic answer. Top 4 is probably a bit of a stretch. But JKL was also talking about the debate between OpTic and FaZe, who's got the higher seeding, who's going to be the better team this season. JKL's opinion is that, like, FaZe are just built different, you know, like, we've kind of been getting used to their dominance. To be honest, like, FaZe's dominance is... It's not really dominance, you know what I mean? Yes, they've been number 1 in the standings for the last several years, but last year, okay, they were always like top 3, top 2, and they won at events, but they weren't dominating. This year, they might be back on that trend as we saw back in the Cold War days, but I kind of agree with Jake that the bar for FaZe is high, you know, like people expect them to be number 1 and for good reason, but OpTic, of course, are always going to have the pressure because it's OpTic, and we'll discuss here exactly what's going on with the power rankings at the moment. Speaking of OpTic, though, we're going to talk about Scrap. Like, it's funny that Scrappy, he knows what he's doing here, and I do love it, to be honest. But he said a little while ago now that he forced Scump to retire, or like he caused that retirement from Scump at the... basically right at the start of 2023, but as Scrap says, the final major Scump played was at the end of 2022 Major 1, and they played in groups as that was a Prem event, right? So we didn't really get to see too much of OpTic versus Toronto in the group stages, but Scrappy says, yeah, absolutely slammed Scump so hard that he called it a day. So Scrap knows what he's doing, Scump then responds, pretty entertaining stuff.
Did you retire Scump? Well, we can go through the factuals. Seth Abner, aka Scump, aka the King. Last major was 2023. Was it 2023? It might have been 2022. 2022, Major 1 was his last tournament. Unfortunately, he had to match up against myself and the Toronto Ultra in groups, and let's just say it was not pretty. It wasn't streamed on main stage, but if you were there, it wasn't pretty. Next thing I know, he's on the sideline. So I did. I retired the King. I retired the King. Someone tweet him that too. Just let him know. We know why you're not here.
Scrappy? Yeah, I'll pick Scrap. Obviously,
Cawk Neck?
Yeah.
He keeps saying he made me retire.
Yeah. Pez bottleneck.
Trying to latch on to me like a
Yep.
Cawk Neck.
Yep. Pez neck likes to run his mouth. But I mean, listen, end of the day, Scrap talks the talk, but he does back it up. He's always playing well. He's a pop-off player. He's a moron from Jersey. Jersey birthed a lot of morons. Me, Zuma, Scrap,
plenty
Bose. I mean, there's a lot of people. So I'll pick...
the dispenser.
Yeah, I'll pick the Pez dispenser. So
sure.
So far we got Scrap and HyDra.
But let's dive into these power ranking discussions then, right? So on the breakdown, Scump and Methods are going through what they expect for the upcoming season. To be honest, these power rankings, they're all so predictable at times. I kind of prefer the ones where they do, player tier list, because there's always a bit more nuance in those discussions, you know what I mean? When you actually do a power ranking tier list, there's very rarely that much nuance to the discussion. I thought the list they came up with was pretty interesting, but, I could have predicted this list a mile off, to be honest. So this is eventually what they come up with. They put in the S tier all of the theoretical top 4 teams. Find it interesting, we've got apparently 7 teams in S or A, which I think is, maybe that's valid because they believe that all of those teams can place top 4, which I think is definitely plausible enough. And sure, the S-tier teams should be the top 4 teams in the standings at the end of the season. That's what I would predict. But that is not necessarily going to be the case. And it's very likely that one of the A-tier teams has a really good start to the season, or even a team lower down. So Gorillas are in the D-tier, unfortunate for them. Then Vegas, Miami. And I think, to be honest, what they've done here is very reasonable. I'd like it if they threw in a bit of a hot take. And maybe Surge in A-tier is a bit of a hot take as well, to be fair. So, I think they've done a reasonable job. Would you put all of those S-tier teams in S-tier? Maybe the argument is, because they haven't ordered these really within the tiers, it's just like, all right, where should the teams slot in? So they're not really saying that OpTic are number 1, but honestly, who knows? It's before the season's even begun at this point. I kind of get why they've put all those 4 teams there, because, nobody really knows who's the best of those 4, and it is difficult to differentiate. Would have been a bit of a hot take if they put, like, New York in A-tier or something like that instead. Then Boston Thieves, I think that's been the theory that they should probably be the best of the rest. But then Surge in there as well. And this is the team that Scump has a lot of confidence can be the dark horse of the season. He reckons Surge or Thieves or something like that as well. I know that people say that maybe Miami could have some more upside. Carolina as well as a big one, the Ravens, whether they can actually perform. Rocker, or G2 as it kind of is, that team could maybe work as well, but I think what they've put together here is pretty reasonable, all things considered, and I guess their expected top 8 at the tournament is going to be the top 7, and then, one of Ravens or Rocker, which is probably pretty valid when you look at it as it stands. I do especially think Surge should be in a good spot for the start of the year, because at least for now, we know the meta is very much AR focused. That might not last forever. The AR meta might change. They might buff the SMGs. They might nerf the ARs. They might be in a position where 2 or 3 rivals on the map is actually viable at some point in the season. I kind of doubt it. I think we might stay 2-2 for a long time. But right now, 1 sub is usually fine. And Hook obviously had a great couple of stages for OpTic. Was really good online the most recent season, so Scump believes that could be potentially the sleeper team of the new year. Also, Methods talks about Miami Heretics could be a big sleeper, because nobody really knows what to expect from those guys, but they were really competitive, at least a few of them were, when they were on the team Heretics way back in the Black Ops 4 days. They were a serious contending team. And JurNii especially was actually one of the better players in the game, especially like kind of middle of that season. However, this is the power rankings list that I find slightly more interesting. So Ronnie's come through, because he's listed all of them, you know what I mean? This isn't like Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Team S, Tier A, Tier B. This is what's the actual order. Now, it's really difficult to tell, but this is what Ronnie says based off scrims and from what he's heard from a few people. Now, I believe easyMac is coming out with his coaches poll like tomorrow or the day after, something like that. So then we'll get to see what the coaches think, but I imagine this is also somewhat based on that as well. So based on scrims and what people seem to believe, he also said in the replies that between 7th and 10th, it's like all over the place. Yeah, 7th and 10th depends on who you ask. But I guess outside of that, of the people that he's asked, they give a pretty similar answer in terms of 1 through 6th, and then 11th through 12th, which is, Vegas, Los Angeles, Guerrillas maybe. So, the theory would be, these are the worst 2 teams, maybe by a margin, which is probably justified. Then you've got Boston, Rocker, Ravens, Miami, all over the place. Nobody knows. And then the top 6, though, includes Surge, but also the big one I've got to say is Los Angeles Thieves. I mean, FaZe number 1, I think there's no doubt about that going into the season. So far, they've looked the best online. We know their search should be good. FaZe themselves said, Drazah said, now this was before they played OpTic, but Drazah said that Ultra is the best team they played. So, theoretically, the answer there can either be Ultra number 2 or maybe OpTic number 2 if FaZe have changed their minds. But I think that Ultra number 2 makes sense, and from the what we've seen, that's justifiable. Then you would probably have OpTic 3rd, but now Los Angeles Thieves are coming into the mix, and this is actually really interesting to see. At the end of the day, this is just based on what we've seen so far in the respawn modes, especially in Hardpoint, right? We don't know how these teams are going to do in Search and Destroy. We can predict. We can predict the FaZe are going to be very good. We can predict the Boston are going to be very good. Probably Surge as well. Thieves, I'm a little bit more torn on. They've got Cammy, Joe Deceives, Ghosty, of course, and Afro. They should be a good Search and Destroy team, but, it's difficult to say whether you'd expect them to be super competitive. So power rankings will depend on that to a large degree, but in the respawn modes, apparently they are looking right in the mix of the best teams. I mean, OpTic here, number 4. New York have probably looked the worst of the theoretical top 4. But the fact that Thieves have slotted in there in 3rd is actually really quite impressive for them in the early part of the season. Surge apparently are then best of the rest, apart from Los Angeles Thieves, then Boston, then Rocker, and then of course we saw the rest. But, it could be all over the place here. I think that, especially in that mid-pack, it's tough to say. But most people seem to be convinced that it's the FaZe and Los Angeles Guerrillas sandwich, and we've seen that before. So very much interested your thoughts in the comment section below. Just to comment on, some of these things we've said on these power rankings. This was going around, so I'm guessing some BPL 8s or whatever. So here's aBeZy, 22 kills already, just into this sub-base hardpoint. Scrappy on Toronto, he's at 24. Dashy's only at 10. Clay's already at 25 on the other side. And Stanley is at 3 kills. So Stanley's on Vegas, of course. And, I don't know. It's tough for Stanley, and it's funny, like, aBeZy's face here. He looks at it, and then he just looks at the camera like, oh my god, what is going on? This guy has 3. I think Stanley finished like 14 in 30, 80 or something, so he had a pretty tough time, to be honest, here on the sub-base hardpoint. But yeah, from what we've seen so far, there is, as time progresses, a little bit more and more of a skill gap in terms of which of these teams we should expect to be the best when the season begins. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.